Hey guys, Break here, and today I'm going to be telling you how I made millions of gold just fishing in my Garrison. Now, whilst I did this a few years back and it's going to be more of a story rather than a gold guide, the technique I used can actually still be used to this day with pretty good effect, and you can still make quite a lot of gold depending on your server doing this. Anyway, this all happened back in Warlords of Draenor when, like most other people, I was very bored just sitting in my Garrison the whole time. Because I was so bored, I was looking for things to do, and one thing I started doing is collecting mounts. And for those of you who have seen my mount video, how I spent 25 million gold on mounts, you'll know that I am very addicted to mount collecting. Anyway, this all started back in WoD, and I really wanted the turtle mounts. For those of you wondering, these are the riding turtle and the sea turtle. And whilst originally the riding turtle was just a TCG mount, in Warlords of Draenor it could be dropped from this thing you fish up in your Garrison. And the sea turtle has always been available in the game, but it's got such a low drop chance, and that also dropped from something you fish up in your Garrison. So what did I do? I started fishing. So what I basically did was try to fish up the Frostdeep minnows. If you're on Alliance, these are called something else. I think the Lunarfall carp. And in order to fish these, you needed a level 3 Garrison with a level 3 fishing shack. And you may have needed some sort of Draenor fishing achievement. I think you might need it now at least, maybe you didn't need it back then. And it also had a higher drop rate the higher the fishing skill you had. So you could use lures and fishing hats and everything to increase your fishing skill and give yourself a higher chance of getting the minnows. Once you fish these up, you throw them in. The cave dweller appears, you kill the cave dweller, loot it, and pray for a mount. And they also give you other stuff, including the lures to increase your fishing, including a nice fishing rod and all of that goodness. But as you guys can tell, I was very bored, so I just used to sit here for hours on end farming these things, just fishing in my Garrison. And the drop chance I think was about 4 or 5%, so 1 in every 20 casts maybe I would get a Frostdeep minnow. I got a very high fishing skill because I added everything to get my fishing skill as high as possible, so my drop chance was pretty good. So the Frostdeep minnows were unique to 5, so whenever I got 5 of the fish, I used to throw them all in, kill the Frostdeep cave dweller 5 times, and pray for the mounts. Anyway, eventually I got them both, and I was very pleased, and all was good in the world. But it was still Warlords of Draenor, and I was still bored. And I was also getting interested in gold making at that time. So I thought to myself that I saw a pretty good gold making opportunity in the market. Now, for those of you who don't know, at the end of Warlords of Draenor in the pre-patch, they changed how the looting system worked, and it basically meant anyone in a raid group could loot the Frostdeep cave dweller. So what people used to do is form these fishing raids in their garrisons, where there'd be 40 people just sitting there fishing. Whenever anyone got a Frostdeep minnow, they'd throw it in the water, everyone would kill it, everyone would loot it, and there'd be a much higher chance of you getting the mounts. So for those of you who remember back then, in the group finder there were lots and lots of raids, Garrison fishing raids, which was interesting. But before the pre-patch, during the main expansion, this was not possible whatsoever, and the only way you could get these mounts was either to fish them yourself or be in a party with someone who was selling them. So not in a raid, just in a party. So what I started doing was inviting people to my Garrison and selling them the fish. Now, as you can see, the fish are soul-bound, and they were back then as well, but that didn't matter. All I did was I threw them in the pool. I didn't do anything. I let the person who I invited to my Garrison attack the cave dweller, and then they got the loot. Very simple. And I would make them pay me beforehand. So I'd be like, right, you pay me 5,000 gold or 4,000 gold, and I will give you this loot and give you this chance to get the mount. So basically I started selling people the chance to get the mounts. I made a little macro and I started advertising it in trade chat, something like this, as you can see down here. Want to sell Frostdeep minnow times 5, 4k gold each, chance for you to get sea turtle or riding turtle. Now, that was quite a lot of gold, especially back then, because this was near the start of Warlords of Draenor, where the crazy inflation of WoD and especially of Legion had not happened. So 4k gold back then, even 3k gold, can't remember the exact price I sold them, but I sold them between 3 and 5,000 gold per fish. So for 5, that was between 15 and 25,000, so probably about 20,000 gold for 5 fish. And I could fish up about 15 fish in an hour, so I was making 60,000 gold an hour, just raw gold, from selling these fish to potential buyers. And what would happen is when I invited someone and sold 5 to them, they would then say, whisper me when you've got another 5 and I'll come back again. So I'd add them to my friends list, and then I would whisper them when I fished up another 5, they'd come back to the Garrison and they'd do it all again. I actually had one customer who gave me over 1 million gold just to get these mounts. They kept coming back and back and back. They must have come to my Garrison about 50 times or something. It was crazy. And each time they'd give me 20k gold. And eventually they did get both mounts. And I was really, really happy for them. They got both mounts. Admittedly, it cost them a lot of gold, but I got the gold. I was happy. They were happy. And yeah, I really did enjoy this method of gold making. And you can tell why it was so addictive for people, because it's just a form of gambling, isn't it? It's just like when you kill a boss that has a chance of dropping a mount, you get very excited. This has the chance of dropping 2 mounts, and you can have multiple goes. So people just keep on having a go, gambling, and hoping to get the big mount. And as you guys know, mount collectors will pay a lot of gold for mounts, and this became very, very profitable for me. Like I say, I was making around 60,000 gold an hour, if not more. And that was back in WoD when 60,000 gold was quite a lot of gold at the start of WoD. And also, it was raw gold. I didn't have to sell anything. I was getting traded this gold by players before I dropped the fish in the water and gave them the chance for the mount. So I was getting 60,000 at least raw gold in an hour, which was really, really good. And yeah, I did this for a while. Like I say, I was pretty bored in WoD. I think I used to snipe on one of my accounts and fish on the other account. So, oh look, there we go, another frosty minnow. The chance is still pretty good, guys. But anyway, yeah, I used to have a sniping on one screen with TSM, and I used to be fishing on this screen. And yeah, it was pretty boring, but WoD was pretty boring, and I enjoyed the gold making. I wasn't that rich back then, so this was a lot of gold for me, and I was very excited doing it, and I had a good time. And I also wanted my customers to get the mounts. Like, I felt kind of bad for them when they gave me 20,000 gold and they didn't get the mount. So every time they came back, I actually hoped that they would get the mount. And quite a few people did end up getting the mount with me. Both mounts, in fact, and I was very pleased with it. And, you know, even though it meant they wouldn't be coming back to me for any more, I could always find new customers, and I did get a great sense of satisfaction when they got themselves the mount, because then we're both happy. I've got a lot of gold, and they've got the mount that they wanted. Anyway, like I say, I did hit gold cap doing this. Gold cap back in WoD was only 1 million gold, and I made multiple millions of gold with this method, so it was very, very profitable for me, and I had a great time doing it as well. It was actually extremely profitable all the way up until the pre-patch, like I say, because at the pre-patch, changed the looting system, and all these Garrison raids started happening with the fishing, and that pretty much killed the market for me, which is a bit of a shame, but it really did last well while it happened, and I think it's a great example of how you can find a kind of innovative and new way of making gold that doesn't involve the auction house, doesn't involve some boring farming, though this kind of was boring farming, but you know what I mean. It's something innovative and new and different that you can sell to people, and I really love those types of gold making methods. Anyway, for those asking if you can still do this now, yes you can. Like I say, it did kind of get killed off a bit in the pre-patch of WoD, but then it made a bit of a comeback in Legion, because there were way less people doing it. You didn't really see fishing raids anymore, and it did make a comeback, and I saw some people on my server doing it in Legion and actually making a nice bit of gold. And I haven't seen anyone doing it in BFA, but that's probably a good thing, because it means there'll be less competition, and if you can find a buyer, he'll be pretty happy paying you the gold. Right now, for example, I've got many millions of gold, but I don't have a lot of time, and I would be perfectly happy if I didn't have the mounts to pay someone to fish them up for me. In fact, lots of raiders are the same. They have a lot of gold but not much time, and mount collectors are willing to spend a lot of gold on mounts. So whilst it worked really well back in WoD and maybe not so good anymore, there still is a market for it, and I'd be interested to see how many people can make a decent bit of gold from this. But there we go, guys. I do really like these new markets that develop every expansion. We had this thing in Warlords of Draenor, and then in Legion we had the whole 101 Twink thing. when you could sell the 101 gear with leech and have people boost you through the dungeons and one-shot all the mobs. I thought that was really fun. Then we move on to BFA, and they have the whole island boosting thing. You can get twinks to boost people through islands for really quick leveling or to get the mounts or whatever. And I just think these cool markets are really fun and can be a great way to make gold, especially if you're a bit bored of the game and looking for something to do. Anyway, let me know what you thought of this video. Have you ever tried this method before? Have you seen people doing it? Do you think it works? Have you ever bought it yourself? And if not, why not? If you really want the mounts, then go for it. But anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and until next time, see ya!